Um, take it away.
All right, well, we'll dive right into it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight to learn about this new coronavirus food assistance program. My name is Brian Sheridan. I'm the County Executive Director for the Farm Service Agency. I cover Shenango, Delaware, and Sullivan counties. By the looks of it, I think we have producers from all three counties joining us tonight, so that's really great. Appreciate you guys taking the time to join us. Want to thank Dale Dewing and Marianne Corrali for working with me on short notice to put this program together. Dale and Marianne work for Cornell Cooperative Extension in Delaware County, and just really appreciate all their help when Farm Bill programs and USDA programs roll out. They're always there to help us with getting the word out and helping farmers enroll. Okay, so we'll get started. Just a little bit of background on the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. So CFAP is an acronym that we're going to be calling it tonight. It'll provide direct payments to producers of ag commodities who have suffered a 5% or greater price decline or had losses due to market supply chain disruptions from the coronavirus. This is a $19 billion program. It's been funded by the CARES Act and the CCC Charter Act. Now, I bring that up where the funding for this program is coming from, because later on in the presentation, when I'm talking about all the different commodities and livestock categories that are eligible, you're going to notice that there's different payment rates. There's two separate payment rates, actually. So I'm going to talk about a payment rate under the CARES Act and a payment rate under the CCC Charter Act. So we're actually going to be talking about two buckets of money. Payments for this program will be issued in up to 3 parts. So what we know right now is that the first payment is going to be 80% of your gross payment. So when you sign up and your application gets approved, your first payment that you receive through direct deposit will be 80% of the gross payment that's calculated. Now, an important thing here I want to really stress is that this program has been structured to ensure the availability of funding for all eligible producers to be able to apply and receive payment. There's been some conflicting information out there circulating that this program might end up like the Paycheck Protection Program, where if producers weren't at their banks there in the first few days to get signed up, they lost out on the opportunity to participate. Just want to let everybody know that this sign up goes on through August, so the funding will be there when your application is filed and approved. Okay, so let's dive into the eligible commodities for this program. So all the commodities that we're going to talk about, the USDA has determined that they've had at least a 5% price loss due to the coronavirus situation. So dairy production is one of our eligible commodities. We have what we're calling non-specialty crops and wool. So those non-specialty crops that have been determined eligible are malting barley, sorghum, canola, soybeans, corn, sunflowers, millet, wheat, oats, and wool. Under the livestock category, right now we have feeder cattle, slaughter cattle, hogs, and then we have lamb and yearling sheep. Value loss crops like floriculture and aquaculture have not yet been determined if they're going to be eligible for the program. I guess now is a good time to just let everybody know that in the training that I had last week for this program, they made it very clear that this program is still growing. The USDA economists are still looking at commodities that have experienced a loss through this coronavirus, and it's very possible that our list of eligible commodities will be expanding. We also have specialty crops. This kind of falls into our fruit and vegetable growers. So I'm not gonna read through this whole list here. You can see there's a lot of them. I'll leave it on the screen for just a second. So you can take a look at that, but these are all of the specialty crops that are eligible for payments under the CFAP program. Okay, next I want to talk about producer eligibility, how you as a farmer can become eligible for this program. I guess I first want to say that if you currently already participate in USDA programs, then it's very easy. It's simply filing the application with our office. If you're a new producer and you haven't participated with our office, there's some additional forms that we need to work with you on to get you established in the USDA system. But I can assure you it's not going to take that long. Our offices are very efficient at getting people processed. So we will, we'll make sure we get you in the system and get you signed up as quick as we can. So to be eligible for the program, you have to be a person or a legal entity who has risk in producing a crop or livestock. And you have to have a share in the crop or livestock produced and marketed. You have to be a US citizen. You have to file an adjusted gross income certification with our office, which certifies that you make less than $900,000 per year. You have to comply with the highly erodible land and wetland conservation provisions. This is the same provisions that have been in effect since 1985 for all USDA participants. It talks about not draining wetlands and converting wetlands to cropland. It talks about having highly erodible land determinations on fields that are in crop rotations and planted to row crops. You also have to have a farm operating plan filed with our office. That's an FSA form CCC 902. I also just want to reiterate that all of these things that are showing here on this screen are all forms that our office will help you out with. So if you're interested in applying and you're a new producer, these are forms that our office will get to you so that you can file them and become eligible. Next, I want to talk about the payment limitations for this program. So the total amount of payments that a person or legal entity can receive is $250,000. There is an optional increase for LLCs, corporations, and limited partnerships to increase this payment limitation. So one of these entity types can request an increase to $500,000 if 2 members of that entity contribute 400 hours of labor and management annually. An entity such as an LLC, corp, or a limited partnership can also request an increase to $750,000 if 3 members each contribute 400 hours of labor and management annually. Okay, so now we're gonna start talking about the eligible commodities and livestock that are approved for enrollment in this program. So first we'll talk about dairy. So we're gonna ask producers to certify to us their January, February, and March milk production that was commercially marketed, and any dumped milk production that was not accounted for by their handler that can be added to this production. So our payment rates, we're going to take that 3 months of production, and under the CARES funding bucket, you'll receive $4.71 per hundredweight. Under the Commodity Credit Corporation funding bucket, we take that 3 months of production and we multiply it by a factor that USDA has given us to adjust that production upward slightly. And we pay $1.47 a hundredweight under the CCC funding. So those 2 rates there are the funding are the rates for payment for the dairy scope under CFAP. Okay, next I want to talk about the livestock scope that covers cattle, hogs, and sheep at this point. So we're going to ask livestock producers to certify to us inventory that was owned by them on January 15th and any offspring that was born from that inventory that was then sold between January 15th and April 15th. Again, so it's animals that you owned and you sold between January 15th and April 15th. These animals qualify for the CARES payment rate, which we'll talk about in a second. And we're going to ask for your highest owned inventory between April 16th and May 14th. So if you had 55 beef animals on April 24th, you're going to certify that to us, and that those animals are going to be eligible for the CCC payment rate. So again, they have to be owned and subject to price risk. So any animals that were contracted and sold, or you had a guaranteed price through a contract that was executed before January 15th, we're going to have to deduct those animals from the eligible livestock. Now, really important thing here that I want to stress is that the sales of culled dairy cattle, cull calves, and bull calves for the purpose of beef are all eligible for payment. So if you're a dairy producer that's listening to this call, you're not only eligible for the dairy scope on your milk production, but you're potentially eligible for the sales of any cull cows, cull calves, or bull calves that you've sent to the market. So you'll also want to think about any animals that you culled between January 15th and April 15th. Okay, these are our payment rates for cattle, hogs, and sheep. This table here, you can see on the left, there's our 3 categories of livestock. And then in the center column there, it kind of divides it up into subcategories for payment. So let's take, for just an example here, let's look at feeder cattle that are less than 600 pounds. Any of those animals under that category that were sold from January 15th through April 15th qualify for the CARES Act payment rate. So they would receive $102 per head. Now, under the CCC funding bucket, if you had feeder cattle in inventory from April 16th through May 14th, you'd receive $33 an animal. Again, those are animals that you have on inventory. And I'll leave this slide here for a second. Again, these are all of the payment rates right down through. You can take a look right across there for the hogs and pigs and lambs and yearling sheep as well. Now, for dairy producers that are listening, any bull calves or cull calves that you've sold to the market during January 15th and April 15th, those calves are going to classify as feeder cattle less than 600 pounds. So those sales of those calves, you would get $102. Any adult dairy cattle that you've sold for beef, any that you've culled, any cattle that you've culled, we're going to put those under slaughter cattle, mature cattle. So they would receive $92 a head. Okay, next we'll talk about non-specialty crops. Just go through that list really quick again. Our non-specialty crops are malting barley, canola, corn, millet, oats, sorghum, soybeans, sunflowers, wheat, and wool. Before I dive into this, I also just want to point out that, again, if for dairy producers or other livestock producers that are out there, you're also eligible if you have corn silage. So it's not just dry shell corn that you have, it's corn silage can be considered eligible as well. If you have high moisture shell or ear corn, that's also eligible for payment. So what we're going to ask producers with these eligible crops to do is certify to us their total 2019 production for each eligible commodity that they have. So crops that you grew last summer and fall, you're going to certify to us your total production for those crops. Then you'll certify to your production that was subject to price risk and unsold as of January 15th. So think of it as the crops that you had in inventory on January 15th, you're going to let us know what that number was. So again, any crops that were forward contracted or had a guaranteed price or sold but not delivered before January 15th need to be deducted. Your production for payment under non-specialty crops is going to be the lesser of the following. It'll be either half of your 2019 production or the inventory that you have as of January 15th. Whichever one of those numbers is less is what your production for payment will be for the non-specialty crop scope. So here are our payment rates for non-specialty crops. Once we have your production for payment, half of that production will fall under the CARES Act payment rate, and the other half is going to fall under the CCC payment rate. So just for an example, let's look at corn. Half of your eligible corn would be at 32 cents a bushel. The other half would be at 35 cents a bushel. Now, if you have corn silage on inventory, you would give us, your total 2019 corn silage production, and then your inventory as of January 15th. You can give that to us in tons, and we will help you convert that to bushels. Because our payment rates for this program, as you can see, for corn are on a per bushel basis. So if you take your tonnage and multiply it by 7.94, that's going to give you your converted bushels for this program. So again, that's your corn silage tons times 7.94 will give you the bushels for CFAP. Okay, we're going to talk about those specialty crops, that long list of crops that we talked about that are fruits and vegetables. So producers that fall under this category are going to certify to us their total volume of production for each of those commodities sold between January 15th and April 15th. So they're going to report to us on the CFAP application that total volume of production. They will also certify to us the total volume of production for each of those commodities that was shipped or delivered but subsequently was not sold and they were not paid for that. And that would be between January 15th and April 15th. We also need the number of acres left in the field or in a greenhouse or a high tunnel that was left in the field, left standing, or was harvested but not shipped or delivered between January 15th and April 15th. Again, I keep saying this over and over again, but it's applicable to this crop scope as well. Any crops that were forward contracted or had a guaranteed price or sold prior to January 15th need to be deducted from your eligible crops for CFAP. Here's our long list of crops that we talked about that fall into the specialty category. And you can see that there are 3 different payment rates here. So the first column shows you the CARES Act payment rate for the sales, those sales that we talked about on that last slide. The second column is going to be the payment rate for delivered production that was subsequently unpaid. And then the third column is going to be what we just talked about a minute ago, your payment rate for crops that were either left in the field, left in the greenhouse, or not delivered. So I know this is a lot of information on this slide. I'm going to keep moving forward, but I do just want to mention that if you are a specialty crop producer, I encourage you to go to farmers.gov/CFAP. All of these payment rates are here on that website for you to take a look at. Okay, so what do you need to do to apply? So I want to mention that producers are not required to supply supporting documentation to FSA. This program was designed to be implemented as efficiently and quickly as possible. So we're not asking producers to mail all of their records into the FSA office at this point. Our applications are going to be paid based on your producer's certification. Now, we also have to mention that in the future, we expect that this program will be spot checked, and at that time, supporting documentation would be requested. So what we're advising producers to do is when they're filling out their application or pulling this data together at home and calling it into our office is just to keep that in a safe place, keep it with your taxes, keep it somewhere, so that if you were selected for spot check, you could easily put that together. All right, so how to apply? Again, this program started today, May 26th, and it runs through August 28th. So there's a wide time frame here for applications to be accepted. Due to the coronavirus situation, our office is unable to accept visitors at this time. So all of our applications will need to be handled through the mail, through email, through fax. There is a drop box outside of each of the offices so that if we mail you the form or email, and you want to try to get it back to us as quick as you can, feel free to give the office a call and let us know that you're going to put that form in the drop box. New producers, first thing you need to do if you haven't participated with FSA or USDA programs is go ahead and contact our office and we're going to establish those records for you. If you're an existing producer, contact the FSA office with all the data and numbers needed for the CFAP application. So if you've done your research, you know your production, you know your livestock number counts, you can contact the office and we'll generate the application for you and mail it out to you for your signature and review. We all understand that right now is a really busy time of year for everybody. So if you haven't had time to go ahead and look through your records to pull everything together that's needed, you can contact our office and just ask for a blank application packet. We'll send you out a blank application, and then when you get a chance to sit down and go through your records, you can manually write in those numbers and send it back to our office. And also, like I said before, if you have web access and you can go to the internet, I encourage you to look at farmers.gov/CFAP. There's a lot of really good information on our website about the program. It explains the payment rates. And there's a really nice calculator on there that Marianne Corrali is going to go ahead and show you. You can actually put your numbers into it and it'll generate the application for you to print and mail to our office.
We have a question about the bull calves sold at the farm to a cattle jockey. Now, I assume that you might have gotten a receipt for those, Steve. What do you say about, say a bull calf was sold to just a private individual?
So I asked a lot of questions about this exact scenario on our training last week. And so the best answer that I can give you on that is, when you took that animal out of your barn and loaded it on a trailer, what was the intent when you were selling it? So if your intention was you were selling it for beef, then go ahead and count it.
Any other questions before we go to the calculation thing? Calculator?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, so on this, the livestock payment, Brian,
Yep.
the CARES Act payment is for the stuff that you sold, and the CCC payment is your inventory?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yep, you got it.
I have a question on the silage. What if the intent was not to sell the silage, but to feed the silage?
Yep, that's another great question that we were all asking on the national training that we had last week as well. So the answer that we received was really favorable. So they told us that if you had corn silage on inventory on January 15th, even if it was intended to be fed out on your farm, you still could have sold it. So they're saying that we are to go ahead and count that. It's eligible for payment.
Great. Okay. I'll get started on just a few examples and then we'll get to the calculator. I just wanted to show a couple of examples here with different herd sizes, a few dairy examples. I mean, the livestock you're going to be able to figure out. And just to note that if the cooperatives were already providing your pounds to FSA, they'll continue to do that. But anyway, let's look at the first one. 60 cows with 300,000 pounds of production in Q1, which is your base that we're going to be working with for this program, January, February, and March. So the calculation is 3,000 hundredweights times $4.71. That is the CARES Act money. And then 3,000 hundredweights times the factor 1.014, which is the little bit of increase they're giving us, times $1.47 a hundredweight. And everything is multiplied by 80%, and that gives, for the dairy, for the milk, for that farm, they would get 14,880. Let's go to a farm that has 120 cows. And I'm just doubling it, 600,000 pounds of production in Q1, doing the same calculations, going through that at 80%, and that's just under $30,000. The next example, 240 cows with 1.2 million pounds in the first quarter, and that's just shy of 60,000. And the last example is 500 cows with 5 million pounds of production in Q1 times 80%. It's just under that 250,000 mark. Now, if you have a big farm, a bigger farm, and you have an LLC, and you have several owners that are providing over 400 hours of management during the year. 400 hours doesn't sound like very many hours. But anyway, then each member can get the max, which is 250,000. So it's one of these things that, you know, certainly there's no risk in signing up. There's time to sign up. I know everybody's really busy. And but the sooner you sign up, of course, you know, the sooner you'll get your funds. Now I'd like to show you the calculator, which is online. And
Marianne, I just went ahead and stopped sharing my screen if you wanted to share yours.
Yeah, I got it. So here is this calculator, and you know, I first looked at it, I said, oh boy. But I'll tell you what, if you want to get an idea of what this looks like and what it'll look like for your farm, I just put in a quick example this afternoon. This is the CFAP payment calculator, and I found it, you know, on the website. And they ask you for your state, and actually, if you're familiar with Excel, which not everybody is, but I can just show you how to go about it. And it's not something you have to do. If you want me to figure it out for you, I can do that. But there are these pages down here. Data entry is the one we're on right now. So you can fill in your state and county, name and address. I've got Jane D. Farmer here. And Jane had 100, I just made it easy, 100,000 pounds in January, February, and March. She's a real consistent producer. And this, you don't even have to do any calculations. It's all embedded in the worksheet. I just put in these three numbers, and I got these numbers, the 80% from the CARES Act, and this is the estimated CCC gross payment, and then this is the total. And then I came down to, I wanted to see what the rest of this form looked like. So then you have your commodities, and that's where your corn, silage, and things will come in. Jane planted some malting barley. She had 150 bushels left in her inventory, and she got a big $21. But over here, she had some corn bushels, and she got 400 bucks, some oats. But I imagine right here is see, every time you click on this little thing, a drop box comes down, and you can put in whatever it is that you might have. But what we'll need to do for corn is to, if you have corn silage, we're going to have to use the factor to convert it to bushels. And then you will get a payment for corn silage, which is really great. Then we'll go down here and fill out the livestock information. During that time, she had, okay, so right here, January 15th through April 15th, sales of owned inventory as of January 15th, and any offspring from owned inventory. Okay, so here I was figuring she had 5 bull calves. And she might have inventory between April 16th and May 14th, but I said she didn't have any. So anyway, she got $400 for that. And she called 5 mature cows right here. Now, if I come down here and I want to do something else, I just click on that box and I go over here And maybe she had something else. If you had feeder cattle, how about fed cattle? Let's do fed cattle that you slaughter, fed cattle. And this might be a, I'm just adding it to her farm as an example, but I want to show you how it works. Maybe she had 10 of those. And then you just tab over, and it's just so easy. It just makes the calculation. And then I thought we'd go down. This is aquaculture and nursery. And if you click here, we're not doing that at the time, I don't think. Are we?
Not yet.
It doesn't really click.
Right. Yep. So value loss crops are still being evaluated.
They're still being evaluated.
Yep. To figure out if and what that payment rate would be.
Okay. And around here, I was trying to think of any crop that somebody might have in storage. So I put in potatoes, and this person had 2,000 pounds. And then this is how much they had left, shipped but not sold. And this is what they got. Not a whole lot. I don't know, Brian, if you would like me to put in anything else here. Do you have any ideas of anything else anybody might have in specialty crop?
I think we're probably okay there, Marianne. There might be a couple specialty crop producers on, but as long as we can direct them to that CFAP farmers.gov CFAP page to plug in their actual crops, I think that would work well.
Okay. So anyway, if you get done with that form and you're happy with it, if you come back down to the bottom and go to this AD 3114 and pull it up, this is your application form. And everything is filled in as you did it in the data entry. So you don't have to really fill it out. It's already done. And I thought this was very slick. I think it's really easy to work with. But if you just wanted to play with it and see what you might be receiving, it is kind of nice to be able to just work with that, and you could print it off and send it in. Here's some instructions, and this is like a summary form, I believe. What is it, Brian? Is it a summary, sort of?
Which tab are you on there? So that's that's ECPR. It means estimated calculated payment report. So it's just another system generated form based on the data entry that you put in on that first screen.
So anyway, it is pretty easy if you feel like looking at it. If not, I think you would be calling the FSA office for an application. Now, Brian, if they just fill in the numbers, you'll do the calculations?
Yep. So if a producer picks up a blank application and goes in and writes in their production, writes in their production on hand for commodities as of January 15th, on the actual application, that's all we need. We'll take that and we'll put that into the system and go ahead and process it through the approval processing.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing and we can take some questions.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So Marianne, maybe the first question, maybe you can handle this. Will people owe taxes on this money?
Of course. I believe so. I mean, all income is taxable. What do you say, Brian? I mean, it's going to be taxable, right?
Yeah, so these payments, just like any other USDA payments, at the end of the year, when a producer gets their 1099-G from the USDA, these payments will be on there. Very similar to the market facilitation program that we did the past couple of years. Our trade program that we did, those payments again were also on that 1099-G. So this would be very much like that.
Okay, another question about inventory of cattle. So is the
Yep.
inventory for calves and cows that you had on hand and sold between April 16 and May 15? I think there was 2 time periods there, right?
So let me jump back to those two categories again. So we're looking for animals that under that livestock scope. So again, cattle, hogs, and sheep that qualify. We're looking for the animals that you owned and sold between January 15th and April 15th. And then we're looking for a second number from you that is your highest owned inventory between April 16th and May 14th. So those are animals that you owned during that time frame and didn't sell.
I mean, what if you didn't intend to sell them?
That's fine. Yep, it's your highest inventory.
Wow. So even if you had cattle that you were growing,
yep,
and for one reason or another, you're going to eventually market them, but you didn't intend to market them during that period of time.
Yep.
You can get a payment for your beef cattle at the different ages that they are.
That's correct. Yep, and I believe it is for all the ages that are there for cattle, it's $33 per animal, regardless of the age category. We still need to separate them out into those categories. Whether they're feeders less than 600 or more than 600, or if they're mature cattle or whatnot. But yes, any animals on inventory during that time period are eligible for the payment.
And those are the animals in that category. Those would not include dairy cows.
Correct. Yeah, that's a good thing to bring up, Dale. Yes, for dairies, the only number that we're going to look for that for eligible livestock on a dairy is cull dairy cattle sales, cull calves or bull calves. The actual dairy animals that you have that are in the barn for milking purposes, we don't count those as inventory because those are animals for dairy production and are being paid under that dairy scope. Obviously, if you're a dairy that does keep some beef animals on the side, if you have some steers or some beef animals that you keep, even if it's just a handful, and you have them on inventory on your farm between April 16th and May 14th, we'll want to count those because again, those would be eligible for that $33 an animal.
So records are really important. If you get to the form and you're filling out the numbers, make sure that you keep a copy of your calculations and also any receipts from Hoskings or Chambers or wherever you're selling your animals, even privately, so that everything is documented for the possible checking back from USDA. So it's really important to make sure you have your records. If you're unsure whether your milk company provides the data to USDA, you can find out from Brian, who.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in there really quick,
Yep.
Marianne. So the cooperatives are not sending us.
Oh, they aren't?
They're not sending it to us directly. No,
Oh.
They stopped sending us production totals after the MILC program. So I've heard that the handlers are sending a summary of production directly to the producers for the program, but we're not getting those in the office at this point. I mean, unless something changes, but as of today, that's where we're at.
Mm-hmm. So, if you're in a hurry or you just want to get it done the next rainy day, you'll want to get that information. Usually you can get it online if you don't have it right at your fingertips from your cooperative or your independent handler. So I think I was under the impression that they were still providing that.
No, we did have one comment in the chat that said that DFA did send a summary and that at least this one producer received theirs today. So.
Okay, there's a question. Will a
Yeah.
6% fee be taken out like it was for MPP, MPP, you know, that 6%?
Yeah, that's another really good question. We did talk about that last week. So sequestration is what that percentage is that's
Right.
sometimes deducted. Sequestration it does not apply to this program. So these 80% gross payments that we're talking about, 80% of the gross payment right out of the gate, those numbers that you see will be the actual numbers for payment.
Okay, we also have a question that says, what does other reductions mean?
Other reductions.
So Andrea, maybe you could, if you're on, you could unmute and tell us where you saw that from, and might help Brian answer the question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, it's under the columns where you say that the 80%, and then it says, except for limitations and other reductions. It's in the end column of the calculations.
Okay, was that on the sheet that Marianne was explaining? Is that where you saw that, Andrea?
Right.
Okay, so maybe we can pull.
I think they're talking about, it might total more than the 250 in some cases, and then there would be a reduction. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because 250 is the max. I think that's what it meant, but I'm not 100%.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah, and if there was, Andrea, if there was any ineligible production potentially, so let's say on a dairy milk that wasn't commercially marketed for some reason, or there was some livestock that were determined ineligible for payment, I believe those would probably fall into that category too.
Okay. Very good.
Any other questions? I mean,
Yeah,
feel free to.
I have a question, Marianne. If they're paying 80% of this now, what is the projection for the rest of it? I mean, is that a month down the road, 6 months down the road, or next year?
Yeah, so I'll jump on there. So, you know, what we're hearing right now is that, you know, the 80% payment is going to go out as soon as we can get these applications processed and approved. They're telling us that the 20% is going to be later determined by the Secretary of Agriculture. The department's going to be, you know, monitoring the funding availability for the program and figure out at what time that 20% will be able to be released. So I don't have a great answer for you on that, Lenny, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
I think it has to do with program participation in all of these programs, and they're kind of waiting to see that they maybe have enough money. I hope they have enough.
So pretty much probably after August 15th, after the initial deadline is done, then they'll probably look at it and go from there.
Time will tell.
Hard to say.
It is, yeah. If we do hear something more solid from USDA on it, we'll put that out through maybe Cooperative Extension's newsletter or some of our newsletters through the office, just to try to let people know if there is another deposit coming through the CFAP program. We'll try to give you guys as much heads up as we can.
I think it's remarkable how fast, I mean, you know, considering it's the federal government, sorry, Brian, but it is amazing how fast, and they want this money to farmers, as they want the money to farmers very quickly. They know that everybody is behind the 8 ball here, and it will be welcome when it comes.
So, Brian, maybe just one more time, how would you like people to contact you? How soon? With what? Do they
Sure.
need appointments?
Yep. So I guess, my best recommendation for everybody is when you're ready to apply. If you have your numbers ready and you're ready to tell FSA all your numbers on production and your commodity production, go ahead and give our office a call. If the office staff is able at that time to go ahead and input your application right while you're on the phone, we'll do that. You might get asked if we can give you a call back through a phone appointment. Our office, as of today, we're still on limited staffing due to the coronavirus situation, but I can assure you that if somebody has to give you a call back, it'll be just as quick as we can. You can also go to farmers.gov/CFAP and do the application from your home, just like Marianne showed you, and you can send that to our office. But yeah, definitely just give our office a call. If for some reason you get the voicemail of the office, it's because we're on the phone with another producer working on their application. So just leave us a message or give us a call back in a few more minutes. Yeah, we're there to help, and our goal is to get these payments out as quick as we can too. We know you guys need the assistance, and our goal is to try to get them processed just as quickly as we can for you.